We're with Omar. Today's special guest is somebody that I met actually during the height of the pandemic. We developed a really, I believe, a really good professional relationship. Ed Gitlin, the head of principal of Tower Fund in the city. And today we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about HRN Capital. We're going to talk about non-QM lending. And we're going to talk about a little bit about us so you get to know us a little better. So Ed, you have a really incredible story that I want to kind of bring to light. You started. How long have you been in the real estate business? Before now, what was your first incarnation?
So it's interesting. I started off in 1986. So
I was 12 years old. Sorry.
Yeah, I was a youngster too. I started off in 1986, so I was around 20 years old.
Wow.
And I started off as a real estate agent.
Okay. And what was like your stomping grounds?
Stomping grounds was, I started off first in Regal Park in
Okay.
Queens. I started off with a Century 21 outfit because I wanted to learn the ropes, and I felt that the franchises, would give you the best.
The training?
The training.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And about a year later, I got my broker's license and worked for another establishment and also in Queens.
In Ozone Park,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And from that point on, obviously, my career took off. And by 1990,
4 years later, okay.
4 years later, I bought out the owners that I worked for.
In the second firm.
At the second firm.
Awesome move, okay.
What happened was, and it's an interesting story, in 1989, there was a waterfall in real estate, and the co-op market was going belly up.
Okay.
So the company that I worked for, they were doing co-op conversions.
Okay.
And they had a bank that was funding them for doing all the real estate. And basically, when they went through the waterfall, they took the bank with them.
Okay.
So they went belly up. And I offered them to buy out their company, which was a real small brokerage house with about 12 agents.
Okay.
And at that time, they asked for $60,000
For the company?
for the company, which I didn't have. And they offered me to finance $59,000.
Which was like, I can do that, right?
I can do that. Yeah. But I was still scared.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the top agents in the company, I went over to him and I said, you know what? I said, look, we have this opportunity. Let's put up 500 apiece.
Let's partner up.
And partner up.
Okay.
And that's what we did. I had more of a business sense. He was more of a worker as far as he knew how to sell. He knew more of the intricate details of the salesmanship.
Okay.
And we took the company from 12 people, and at that year it was negative 250,000 in cash flow.
Wow.
To 450 people.
In a matter of how long?
In a matter of, so we sold the company in 2008. So
we'll get to that part.
I would say it took us about, so if we bought this in 1990, I would say we started really growing through mergers and acquisitions by 1994.
How are you buying other companies? What was happening? Like, was badly managed or misrun, undercapitalized? What did you find?
No, what we figured out is that it has nothing to do with mismanagement. It has to do with, there's a lot of agents and brokers that are going out on their own. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to make it, but however, because they want independence and they want to build a brand for themselves.
Right.
But what happens is when they go on their own, they don't realize that there is a huge infrastructure expense that comes along with owning a business.
Right.
So even though they could be a great agent, basically everything that they produce is being eaten up by their expenses.
Right. Their burn rate.
Right.
Right.
So what happens is that you don't want to go out for the companies that are being mismanaged, because if they're being mismanaged, that means their whole team is basically cancerous.
Right.
What you want to go is for the talent that's being eaten up by the expenses.
Okay.
So what we did was we went over to small companies and we said, look, you guys have a great team, but obviously you have these expenses that are eating you up.
Right.
Why don't you merge into us? We will take care of your expenses. We will give you a much higher split. But now you keep your identity, but the infrastructure belongs to us. And this way we're growing, you're growing, you keep more money in your pocket.
Everybody's winning.
And everybody's winning.
Right, right. Okay.
And that's what we did. So we merged, I would say, probably about 8 or 9 companies into ours.
In a matter of how long?
In a matter of, I would say, about 6 years.
That's aggressive.
Yeah,
right. That's aggressive.
That was pretty aggressive.
So at the height of it, we're well, all right. So that's just real estate. right?
This was just real
And then you
estate.
did venture into other fields?
Yeah, so what happened was because we were in Forest Hills and River Park area in Queens in the beginning, then we ventured out to Nassau, Suffolk, and Brooklyn. What happened was we were primarily in the co-op market.
Right.
And for those people that remember, in the early 90s, late 90s, the co-op market, the banks would not finance them.
Right.
So we were selling apartments.
Cash?
No, we were going into contracts.
Right, but not closing.
And they were falling apart.
Right. Okay.
Because of
There's
financing.
no financing, right?
Right. So we decided that, we need to control that aspect of it. So we went out and we opened up a mortgage banking company, and we started to fund those ourselves.
So you found investors, or you guys were self-funding?
No, we basically table funded through warehouse lines,
okay.
or through companies. Or at that time, the banks were such as Greenpoint, Dime, and they had the programs. The problem was that the mortgage brokers didn't want to do the work because the folks were selling for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. They didn't feel like they want to do the work or pay attention to it.
Because the money wasn't there for them that they saw, right?
Right. The commission was pretty low.
Right.
So we did it out of need.
Right, out of necessity.
Right. But at the end of the day, and within a couple of years, we were doing about 1,600 to 1,800 loans a year.
That's good.
And without even going
And
out
these
to
are
get
all
business.
self originated, because your real estate brokers are the ones originating, because we need to close these deals.
That's correct.
And they bring them in-house, and now, so basically you become vertically integrated.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So basically we became what's like a funnel system. We would sell and then we would finance them.
Okay.
And then we saw that, going to the closings, we were missing another piece of it, is closing the deal through a title company.
Right.
So a few years later, we opened up a title company. So now we were able to funnel the same deal 3 times.
Right.
So instead of making, if an average broker on a co-broke would make 2% commission, we would make 2% commission on a broker's end, 2% on a mortgage end, on the lending end, and about another 1.5 on the title end.
Right.
So even in the hard times, by doing a third less deals, we can sustain ourselves.
Right. It's a way of making more for less.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct. And plus you give a great service to the consumer because there's one nucleus that handles their file.
Yeah, one point of contact, and it becomes, if there's an issue, you can identify it right there and handle it very quickly, compared to like where you see where you have a lot of multiple outlets, and once somebody's calling, they didn't get the phone call, the email, and everything's kind of staggered, and everything kind of goes. Time kills deals.
Right.
Right. So time kills deals. So let's talk about that real fast. Sometimes when you're dealing with a lot of fragmentation, a day, 2 days, 3 days, things can change. Credit scores can change. The market can change. Interest rates change 4 times a day. Like that, I don't know if people really understand that. How much is actually moving? It's almost like a real estate transaction, is almost like a moving target, right? Like so many things can go wrong, and you try to anticipate, but you can't anticipate everything. So the fact is, if you're vertically integrating it now, you can see everything very quickly. Pivot and take care of it.
100%.
So how was your closing ratio fast?
Our closing ratio was very fast. Our closing ratio was great. Our targeting was 98% from contract to close,
Beautiful.
Which was great. You know what I'm saying? So our fallout ratio was almost non-existent.
That's efficiency.
Yeah, that's efficiency.
So here we are in 2000. We have, at the height of the market, what was your company doing? What kind, in terms of numbers, so people can really understand the gravity of what we're talking about?
So we were doing about 1,500 transactions in each of the departments.
A year.
Okay. So we're doing about 1,500 sales, whether it's homes, condos, or co-ops. Doing about 1,500 to 1,600 mortgages and about 1,600 to 1,800 titles.
Okay. Can you convert that into numbers? People understand?
Sure. It's about 650 million in volume.
Okay. A year.
A year.
Okay. So when did you decide, all right, I've made enough money, I'm good, I think I want to just sell out?
So there was 2 breaking points.
Yeah, let's hear it. That's what I want to hear. Yeah.
2 breaking points. So first breaking point is that I always believe that the exit should be at the top, not the bottom.
Okay, that's a good philosophy.
Because if you exit at the top, you will get your top dollar and you can negotiate in a stronger aspect.
Right.
When you're selling at the bottom, you're not exiting, you're running.
Right, and you're in a position of weakness compared to being in a position of strength.
Right. And everybody senses that.
Right.
Because the numbers don't lie.
Right.
The other reason why I decided to basically exit out of the brokerage business per se is because I saw that the industry is going more IT rather than service.
Okay.
So when I got into the business, it was all about service.
Right.
The consumer did not have access to any information, and they depended on brokers
For everything.
For everything,
Right.
service, for getting inventory,
Updates.
and for the knowledge.
Yeah. Right.
Nowadays, the consumer is extremely knowledgeable, very sophisticated, sometimes even more sophisticated
Than some brokers.
Than some brokers.
Right.
And obviously, the information is available instantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I felt that the business is going IT.
Okay.
For the business to go IT, that was not my format.
Right.
This is not what I was looking for.
Right.
You know. So I said, you know what? If they're going IT, if this is what they're doing, I would rather get out.
Okay.
So we decided to sell the company.
So your partner was cool with it. He was like, all right, I mean, we're making all this money, but you want to sell.
My partner was cool with it. However, he did want to retain one of the offices for himself.
Okay. You want to stay in the business.
He wanted to stay in the business. He's more of an old school. And what we did, he retained one of the offices, the one office that we started in Forest Hills.
Okay.
He actually retained that.
Is he still there now?
He's still there now.
That's still there. Okay, cool.
And we were fortunate enough when we did open offices. We had 8 offices when we were exiting. And what we did was, one of the strategies is we bought every building that we occupied.
Oh, that's a dope strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had also the assets that we've built.
Right.
You know, which was good. So we basically, when we cashed in for the businesses, and we cashed in for the
real
assets.
estate. Yeah. So how do you say I want to sell my business for $650 million, right? How do you go on Craigslist and put that out there? I mean, how do you find, right? Because that's a very specific buyer. That's not like, I want to get out. Like, who has the deposit? How do you do that? Only because that might be me one day. I want to know how to do that. Yeah.
So it's almost impossible to sell it to an average company.
Okay.
And an average company can't buy you for a couple of reasons. Number one is that either don't have the cash,
Right.
or they don't have anything to offer you on the back end. So you have to go to someone who is either national, who can either give you the money up front, or can offer you stock options in their company, so you can make a residual income with time. So we went to a company called Realogy.
Okay.
And Realogy basically owns the brand names like Century 21, Coldwell Banker.
Oh, they own multiple.
They own multiple.
Okay.
Right? So they're basically brand holders.
Okay.
Okay. At one point, they used to be called Sandent, where they also held like companies like Holiday Inn, Hotel 8, Motel 6.
Okay.
So they're branded.
Right. So they hold brands. That's their business.
Exactly. They don't hold real estate. They hold brands.
Right.
So basically, we went to them, and at that time, when we were looking to exit, at that time, Barbara Corcoran was exiting from her business. From Shark Tank.
Yeah, let's put that.
Yeah, was also exiting into Realogy.
She was exiting her Corcoran?
Her Corcoran group, yeah,
Okay.
into Realogy. And there was some kind of a merger happening between them, and Realogy decided to partner them up with Coldwell Banker brand in New York City. So basically, they decided to merge us into that deal.
Like an umbrella almost, right?
Almost like an umbrella.
But you had funding. Did they have funding also? Did they have triple threat?
They basically, no, they didn't have the triple threat. No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
they only had the real estate brokerage team.
Okay, so that was your super leverage. Okay.
Exactly. So when we went in, we were offered either a cash or upfront plus stock options. We decided to take the cash rather than the stock options, and basically we just walked out for one check.
One check. Do you mind saying how much that was?
Yes.
All right, so we won't talk about it. All right, so let me get into
Because it wasn't just me.
Okay, I got you.
My partner would kill me.
Yeah, so let's get into the whole how fucking lucky are you, right? Let's play that game. When did you sell your company and what happened right after?
Sold it in 2008, 6 months before the world collapsed.
The world collapsed. In 2008, the real estate market took a shit. That's when Obama had to come out with all the funky loans to try to help save everybody from foreclosure. So had you sold 6 months later, I don't think you would have been able to sell.
I don't think
there was no value.
There was no value
in the asset. So
there was no value.
Very lucky guy. Very lucky guy. Yeah.
This has nothing to do with business sense.
Right.
This
Absolutely.
is luck.
That's fucking crazy.
Pure luck.
So let's go into something else. So people that know me know that I own a real estate company, commercial lender, and I'm now pushing HRN Capital, which is private money, direct money. The reason I want to talk about it and I have Ed here is because basically you're looking at the underwriting committee. You bring me a deal, I look at the deal, I can tell you right then and there if it's going to work. If we issue a commitment, I want to say it's almost like 100% going to close unless something crazy like you get arrested by the FBI the day before the closing. We're going to close it. And I think that is something I want to touch upon. I also like what you said about service, because what I'm hearing a lot of is people don't pick up the phone when there's a hard phone call to make. And I pick up the phone no matter what. Like that's just one of my things. So good news, bad news, no news, you're get an update. But I also want to talk about, there's so many different people right now talking about hard money. And I'm going to get back to that in a second. So you hear a lot of people talking about their hard money lenders, their private money lenders. But the difference here is simple, that we are actually lending our own leveraged asset. A lot of guys, I'm not going to name any names in this video, I don't want to get any phone calls. They're actually selling, table funding. They're selling their asset to another investor off their credit line, but they're also subject to that investor's underwriting. So let's just use an example. If I worked at one of those places, I said, "Oh, you look good, no problem. We're good to go." And then I send the package over to my investor, and so many things can go wrong, right? Like I said, real estate is a moving target. Maybe credit expires, maybe something happened. They want to repo credit, and something's different. They can always say, "No, we're not doing this. We're gonna do the deal." And then you get that phone call where they're like, "I thought I was good to go," and you're really not. That's never gonna happen here. We have no minimum FICO, so even if you don't exist, and you have a building that you want us to lend on, we can lend on it. We can lend to foreign nationals, people that don't even have social security numbers, correct?
That's correct.
65 LTV, and we can close in 10 days. So I think that's really the biggest difference I want to touch on right now, because I'm seeing a lot of proliferation of people coming out saying they're this, they're that, but in reality they're not. And for the unsophisticated investor, it doesn't really matter to you, but for the guy that needs an answer and is depending on execution and speed for their capital to finish their leverage, whatever their asset is, so they can finish their plan, that's a fucking game changer. So that's why I wanted to make this video. On top of that, private money is a great asset, or hard money is a great tool for a quick execution on, like, maybe your credit's not where it should be, you don't have the time to wait for a bank's decision, you can grab the asset. But I think especially a lot of our minorities are not understanding that once you get into it and use the hard money, you should be having an exit strategy. And I think that's where we kind of make a difference. Once I put you into a hard money loan for 12 months, I can just immediately start prepping you for your exit and put you into one of our non-QM products, where I can have an exit for you as little as 6 months later, right? So I think that's the biggest difference that people have to understand. It's a short-term solution to execute on something you need to do quickly. But as soon as you get in, you should have a plan, or the professional you're dealing with should have a plan for you on how to get out, because that's where people tend to fall into problems. I don't know if you're going to agree with me what I'm about to say, but we met at the height of COVID, where a lot of the banks that I was selling my loans to just shut the door. I would call them. I had millions of dollars waiting to close, and I had to find solutions. I ended up looking for smaller banks, and smaller banks put me in contact with, the people that were still lending were still looking for deals, and I had a lot of deals, so I had to figure it out, and I was able to pivot. So, in crisis, there was an opportunity. I see that happening again in a few months, to be quite honest with you, and I think that's why I wanted to put this information out there. I think there will be there's a resurgence right now in the non-QM market, and everybody keeps calling me. When I mean everybody besides clients, market, smaller banks, we want you to come on with us, we want you to lend, we want you to do this. But I maybe I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder from what happened in March, when I thought that I could count on them, and it was not so. It was just like, we can't lend it, we can't sell it. And that's the game changer. So if you're dealing with me, and I say it's going to happen, the world can go upside down, it's still going to happen as long as we go to the closing table. Did you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, and actually, what I want to talk about, and actually to add to your point, is a couple of things. It's very important to know that when you're going to a broker, or when you're going to borrow money from someone who is not a decision maker or does not use their own money, what happens is that like you said about table funding, right? What happens is when they do a table funding, they lend out the money, and a minute later it goes to another lender who now will own your loan. And guess what? Maybe 3-4 days later, it goes to a different lender who's going to own your loan. And then maybe a month from now, if you have a problem, you're going to call somebody. You're going to call Mr. Cooper. You know, who's Mr. Cooper if you got the money from Joe? And that's what happens.
What are you talking about? A secondary servicing market, and a lot of people don't understand. They get these new bills on in their mailbox. They don't understand why is my loan being sold. It's servicing rights. They make money off of each payment. They get paid to collect the money from you to sell to whoever is the final investor.
Right. And what that poses is a huge issue with you getting out of from hard money into regular financing or non-QM financing. And that's exactly what Omar was talking about, is how are you going to progress from hard money to regular financing to conventional or maybe a better rate or a longer term to achieve your goals. And that's really our job as direct lenders, how to achieve that. And as far as what you said, what happened through COVID and how we met and about the money and non-QM losing its liquidity and totally, pulling the rug
Being non-existent,
pulling the rug from under you is exactly what happens. And, a simple example is very much, you need a carton of milk and you go to the store and there's no milk.
Right. Or toilet paper.
Or whatever, or toilet paper, exactly. Yeah. But if you own the cow, you just go to the cow and you milk the cow. So basically think of us as that way.
We're the cow.
We're the cow.
Well, the mission is simple. It's I'm looking forward to help people, leverage their assets, reposition themselves, and then finally get them out into a sustainable loan. But like I said, if I say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts. All right, Ed Gitlin, anything in closing that you want to say?
I want to say that I'm glad there was COVID so we could meet.
There's always good news. Yeah.
All right. And I'm glad that we survived it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you survived it. And I hope everybody on the other
side of the camera
of that lens also survives it. And just want to tell you that there's absolutely not one commitment that ever left our office that did not close, other than somebody's title was just so screwed up that nobody can fix it.
So the moral of the story is, you call me, I give you a commitment, we're closing. All right, and don't just survive, thrive. Ed Gitlin, thank you very much.